Chapter 20. The Sacred Prostitute. Ishtar was the patron goddess of prostitutes. She was their protector, their encourager, their supporter, their guide, and their matron. From the ladies of the night who walked the streets of Sumer to the sacred prostitutes who inhabited the shrines and temples of Babylonia, they all looked to Ishtar, prayed to her, worshipped her, and were her servants. Prostitution was a part of her cult. Sexual acts attended her worship and rituals and could be found in her sanctuaries. The temples of Ishtar were famous for their connection to prostitutes and even for the business of prostitution. The connection was intrinsic to the goddess's identity. The harlot goddess, Ishtar, was not only the great benefactor of prostitutes but their role model. Her obsession with sexuality, her promiscuity, her countless relationships and lovers, all of these served as examples for her ancient Middle Eastern prostitute. In the tablets of Sumer, Ishtar, or her earlier incarnation as Inanna, is described as a harimtu or karkid. The words are commonly translated as prostitute. Some argue that the words can mean prostitute but not necessarily in every context. But the words appear in descriptions of Ishtar where the context clearly refers to prostitution, specifically when it citherns the tavern, the place where prostitutes gathered and worked. One ancient hymn says this: "They cannot compete with you, Inanna, Ishtar. As a prostitute you go down to the tavern, and like a ghost who slips in through the window, you enter there." And from another: "You, my lady, dress like one of no repute in a single garment." As the ancient Mesopotamian prostitute could be identified by her jewelry, so to Ishtar. The pearls of a prostitute are placed around your neck. Another ancient tribute to the goddess is even more detailed, as it deals with the pricing of her trade. "When I stand against the wall, it is 1 shekel. Another ancient inscription has the goddess saying outright, "I am a prostitute." The sexualization of American culture. The return of Ishtar was the return of the prostitute goddess. It would set in motion a transformation based on the dynamics of her trade as well as her cult of worship. Prostitution takes sexual relations out of the exclusive context of husband and wife and brings them into the larger culture, into the marketplace, the realm of trade and commerce. Likewise, Ishtar's cult of worship took sexuality out of the private realm of the marriage covenant and into the public realm of festivals, rituals, and temple worship. So when the spirit of Ishtar returned to Western civilization, it worked toward removing sexuality from the bounds of marriage. Sexuality now moved out of the private realm and into the public realm, and had once been the exclusive possession of husband and wife within the covenant of marriage, now became the possession of the larger culture, popular culture, and public life. So American and Western culture became sexualized. Its sexuality had been stolen from the marriage bed. Sexuality was now everywhere and unbridled by the covenant of marriage. The harlot's pay. It was not only that Ishtar's prostitutes would take sexuality out of the marriage bed and into the streets of Sumer and Akkad, they would bring it into the marketplace. They converted it into a commodity to be bought and sold. In prostitution, sex was employed as a means of procuring money. So upon her return, not only did the prostitute goddess flood the culture with sexuality, but they increasingly employed it in the marketplace as a commodity. Sex would increasingly be used to procure money on movie screens, in music videos, in magazines, on the internet, and wherever else it could generate money. What the spirit of Ishtar had promoted in the cities of Mesopotamia, it now promoted in America and world culture. Sex was monetized. The ponification of culture. It was not only that sex was used to sell other commodities, but as in Ishtar's ancient craft, sex itself was up for sale. Industries that had existed in the shadows now entered the American and Western mainstream and were normalized. Adult magazines, adult clubs, adult movies, adult entertainment increased in numbers and influence. One no longer had to venture into the corners and shadows of American life. The shadows were overtaking America. The tablets of ancient Mesopotamia contain inscriptions in which the goddess seeks to tempt her lovers into sexual relations. They will not be quoted from here, as they could be described as pornographic literature. So as the spirit of the goddess increasingly took hold of American and Western culture, pornographic literature and storylines began entering into the mainstream. As the ancient Mesopotamians read or listen to the pornographic words and stories of Ishtar, Americans now read pornographic literature and watch pornographic movies in theaters, on their television sets and on their computer monitors. And as prostitution depersonalized sexuality, so the spirit of the prostitute goddess increasingly depersonalized sexuality. Mother of Eros, the newly mainstream sex industries would employ and be known by the word erotic. Erotic literature, erotic dancers, erotic massages, erotic movies, erotica. The word erotic comes from the word eros. Eros was the ancient god of the Greeks. The name means desire. Eros was the god of sexual desire and love. Eros was born of Aphrodite. Aphrodite was the Greek incarnation of Ishtar. So behind the name, given to describe the deluge that was sweeping over American and world culture, was the pagan god Eros, and behind Eros was Ishtar. Behind it all was Ishtar having returned to the modern world. The goddess had again given birth to Eros. The images. The worship of Ishtar was not limited to pornographic literature or storylines. It found its most popular expression in imagery. The image of Ishtar as a naked woman could be found all over the ancient Middle East in terracotta reliefs, royal seals, and clay idols. Images of naked women were typical of pagan culture and especially prominent in the worship of Ishtar. Thus we might expect that the entrance of Ishtar into America and modern culture would bring a revival of naked imagery, and that is exactly what took place. Naked images, particularly those of women, would again permeate Western civilization. In the modern case, it would be known as pornography. In ancient times, Ishtar caused images of naked women to spread throughout the Middle Eastern world in clay, stone, and paint. Now upon her return, she began causing the same images to permeate the modern world in photographs, films, video clips, and digital imagery. The images and practices that once characterized the culture of the goddess now characterized American culture. The porn goddess. Among the oldest writings in world history are the sacred hymns to Ishtar, Inanna, in which she is described as a prostitute. The Greek word for writing is graphos. The Greek word for Ishtar's profession, prostitution, is porne. It is from this root, writings about a prostitute, that we get the word pornography. But by the literal definition of the word, pornography was purged in the sacred writings of the goddess. And so, as the spirit of the prostitute goddess moved upon America, America became filled with pornography, or as it was called in short, porn, meaning, in effect, the prostitute. American culture, entertainment, and American-produced internet made pornography ubiquitous. It was everywhere. Americans no longer had to go into the red light district of American cities and towns to obtain pornographic materials. American culture had now become a red light district. Ishtar had triumphed. Her effect on America was so great that it had now become the world's leading creator and exporter of pornography. America was now, in fact, producing the majority of the world's pornographic content. It had become the undisputed porn capital of the world. The civilization that had been consecrated on its inception to advancing the gospel and spreading the light of God to the nations was covering the earth with pornography and advancing the agenda of another spirit, that which now controlled it, that of the prostitute goddess. What do sex, drugs and rock and roll, fortune tellers and witchcraft, intoxication, New Age movements and the world of the occult have to do with one another? They all go back to the enchantments of a Mesopotamian goddess,